Born in December of 1879, William Billy Mitchell had an extensive military career, beginning when he was 18 by serving in the United States Army during the 1898 Spanish-American War. His love for aviation comes from one of his assignments, where he served as the interim commander and later deputy commander of the Army Aviation Division of the Army Signal Corps in Virginia in 1916. There, he wanted to become a pilot, but unfortunately the Army had an age restriction, and 38 was too old to fly. Frustrated by this roadblock, he decided to enroll in a civilian flying school to pay for his own flying lessons. A year later, while he was in France studying military aircraft production, the U.S. joined World War I, declaring war on Germany. He was promoted to brigadier general during the war and was in command of all American aerial combat units stationed in France. From here, he had his first major success in wartime aviation, amassing a fleet of over 1,000 American and Allied planes to relentlessly assault German battle lines in the Battle of St. Mihiel. He proved the efficiency of planes when his attack was successful, and he was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross for valor for being the first American Army pilot to fly across enemy lines. However, once the war was over, Mitchell was returned to his previous rank as colonel and was only selected to be the deputy chief of the Army Air Service. In spite of this, he promoted the Army Air Service and began becoming increasingly vocal about America's need to invest in air power. He verbally attacked important military officials and members of the White House, demanding a chance to demonstrate the destructive power of aircrafts on battleships. His request was granted, and thus began the trials that revolutionized the use of aircrafts in warfare, the 1921 naval bombing trials.
It is conceded by every first-class power in the world that air power will determine the next war. Each nation is organized now to match its air power at the beginning of a contest. Instead of the armies and navies being the object of the attack of air power, they will go directly to the vital centers. Our future in this country depends on air power.
The 1921 naval bombing trials were created to prove that either battleships were superior to planes, as many Army and Navy officials believed, or that aircrafts were the next generation of warfare, intended to dominate both the air and sea. Aircrafts had previously been used only as observation balloons or for reconnaissance, so the idea that they could be used as an offensive measure was new and highly debated. The public opinion before the trials took place was mixed. Some believed that the mighty battleships could withstand the bombs, or that the planes had poor enough navigability that they wouldn't be hit at all. Others believed that the planes would completely obliterate ships, since there were no anti-aircraft measures to defend them. These tests were to see how different bombs and gunfire could affect the massive battleships, and to see how well an aircraft could navigate to a ship without the use of the land or any navigational gear. Just off the Virginia Capes, various captured German warships, including the infamous Ostfriesland, the submarines U-117, U-140, and UB-48, and various other destroyers and cruisers were stationed to begin the trials. Planes like the Martin MB-2 were set to take off from land, locate the ships, and either drop bombs or release gunfire on them. These planes at the time had a range of 558 miles and had a maximum speed of 55 miles per hour. They could carry a maximum 3,000-pound bomb load and tested light bombs with heavy cartridges, heavy bombs with light cartridges, poison gas, and gunfire. Of the 8 total ships sunk between June 21st and July 21st, 4 were downed by bombs and the other 4 by gunfire. The results were just as Billy Mitchell believed. Every single ship that was tested sank due to aircrafts alone. In a Navy report, the conclusions were extensive. First, the dirigibles, seaplanes, and land planes tested were confirmed to be able to find the ships, but the pilots had to have personal knowledge of navigation. The officials also noted that weather conditions such as fog, rain, and darkness hindered the plane's navigation, but it equally affected the battleships. They also determined that wireless communication from the plane was extremely important in its use for scouting. As for the destructive potential of the tested bombs, they were determined to be extremely effective. When dropped close enough to a ship, it created what is called a water hammer, where it creates a mine-like effect and damages the hull of a ship. This increases the area that a bomb could be dropped to effectively damage a battleship. During the trials, the U-117 was hit directly twice and sank in 12 minutes. The Ostfriesland was tested using bombs of 600, 550, 250 and 100 pounds on the first day, which damaged the ship enough that it was partially sunk by the second. That second day, 2,000-pound bombs were dropped, sinking the seemingly invincible battleship. They also determined that under favorable conditions of clear skies and adequate lighting, bombs performed much better than gunfire. The Navy officials in charge of overseeing the trials reported three possible solutions to reduce the efficiency of the bombs: maneuverability, anti-aircraft munitions, and pursuit planes. In terms of maneuverability, the ships would have to move in zigzagging patterns in attempt to throw off any bomber planes. The only problem is that any aircraft could outmaneuver a massive battleship or submarine, rendering the argument useless. In terms of anti-aircraft fire, nothing had been produced that was accurate and effective enough to damage a plane, and if they could, planes could still easily avoid the attacks. The Navy officials determined that pursuit planes, which would tail the bombers and attack them before they were able to bomb the ship, would be the most effective solution. These trials spurred the development of planes, regardless of the fact that most of the Army Air Corps had been defunded and liquidated after the conclusion of World War I. In 1926, the Air Corps Act was passed, setting a goal to increase the number of serviceable planes from 229 to 1,800 and have a personnel count of 16,650 by June 30th, 1932. While they never reached this goal due to the Great Depression, the Air Corps still built and tested new planes that improved and broke records in speed, endurance, distance, and altitude. Bomber aircrafts became extremely important when the United States entered World War II in 1941, being used in the Doolittle Raid in 1942 and the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. April 18, 1942, 16 B-25 Mitchells, named after Billy Mitchell, were set to take off from an aircraft carrier 650 miles east of Tokyo that would devastate the Japanese cities of Tokyo, Nagoya, Yokosuka, Kobe, and Yokohama. These aircraft could hold a bomb load of 3,000 pounds and had a range of 1,350 miles. They were stripped of any guns or unnecessary equipment beforehand to allow for extra fuel and bombs to be held on board. 80 airmen dropped massive incendiary bombs on big cities made of wood and paper, devastating the targeted factories, storage facilities, and military bases. 3 years later, two atomic bombs were dropped on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, triggering the end of World War II's Pacific Theater. World War II provided a chance for bomber planes to be used offensively and proved how effective these planes were in warfare. This prompted the creation of the United States Air Force in September of 1947, 2 years after the war. The Air Force has grown to become a pillar of national defense, with bomber planes like the B-52, the B-2, and the B-21 being an important part of the branch. Billy Mitchell's push for the United States to revolutionize the third dimension of warfare was supported by the 1921 naval bombing trials, later resulting in the use of bomber planes during World War II in the Doolittle Raid and the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki.